everyone.
And you're?
I'm Muneeba, and I'm running for president.
That's you.
Yep.
Okay, first question is, what are your key priorities if you're to be elected as the president of the Students' Union?
So I have 5 key priorities. So the first is to tackle cost of living through subsidizing free bus passes, ensuring better bus services, and look at lobbying for lower bus prices across the region, as well as increasing access to the hardship fund. My second priority is around SU transparency and ensuring that ASVs are protected, but also ensuring that students have more efficient and accessible routes to making changes within the SU. My third priority is improving education, mainly to make education at Warwick more accessible and inclusive. So that involves working on things that I've been currently working on, but continuing work around reasonable adjustments and mitigating circumstances, as well as improving personal tutoring, and to make education more inclusive through continuing the work of the DCAL advocates. My fourth priority is on safety and well-being, so making sure all of our events are inclusive and safe for everyone, and also making sure that our sports are also inclusive. So continuing things such as the Women's Night In, which is today, and also making sure that Friday Feeling continues, so that students who don't drink also have spaces that they can go out and socialize in, as well as restarting up the self-defense classes that Anaya started. And then my fifth priority is around sustainability, so continuing the demilitarization campaign that me and Anaya have been working on this year to get the university to divest from all of its partnerships with arms companies, as well as with fossil fuel companies, ensuring that the SU's sponsorships are also sustainable, and continuing things that have started this year, such as Thrift Thursdays that Naomi and Sasha started.
What makes you stand out from the other presidential candidates?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say what I've done this year shows that I have what it takes to fulfill the role of president. So while my role has been within education this year, I've done a lot of work that I would intend to continue or help progress as president. So some things include bringing the exam timetables forward, the work that we've done on demilitarization, because I've also been in those spaces where I've interacted with the university and key stakeholders. I feel that I would be well prepared to continue that role as president.
Okay. Next question is, what is the biggest issue facing Warwick students right now, and how would you tackle it?
I would say one of the biggest issues students face would probably be the education space, which I know can sound a little biased based on my current role, but I feel that a lot of students encounter issues with their courses, with reasonable adjustments, with applying for mitigating circumstances. And this not only disproportionately affects students from backgrounds such as disabled students, Black students, students with mental health difficulties, and other minority groups of students, but also affects a wider group of students. So a lot of things that do come to SLCs, for example, a lot of students assume that if it doesn't get resolved there's nothing they can do about it. But actually the SU structures are there in place so that if students are still dissatisfied with what they get out of SLCs, they can take it through there. So I think improving education is the biggest priority to focus on.
How would you help create a more inclusive and accessible SU, especially for students from these marginalized groups and low-income backgrounds?
That's a great question. So I think there are some things that have begun this year or started this year that have worked quite well and should definitely be escalated. So some things include the ideas platform, which I think definitely has potential to be developed into something where students who aren't typically engaged within SU structures or don't understand a lot of political jargon can go, hey, I have an idea, we should do this. And instead of having to go through very complicated processes, we can just go, oh yeah, we can do that. That's very easily done. I think there are other venues as well where we need students to be more involved. So one of those is through our part-time officers, and it's great that we have representatives of minority groups. But I feel that there's more that they can be supported with to ensure that they can do things while also still doing their degree. So ensuring that they're supported with events such as Disability History Month and other cultural events as well, and ensuring that we engage them more within our structures. So that involves getting them on board from the very beginning, from Welcome Week as freshers.
Okay, next question is, what makes you feel like you're the correct candidate to represent the Warwick SU on a national level, like for the National Union of Students, for example?
So I think there's some work that has gone on this year with NUS and with Russell Group SU that I've been involved with. So I have some connections through NUS with fellow education officers across the country. And that's been very useful in gaining insights towards what other SUs or universities do with similar issues, such as mitigating circumstances and reasonable adjustments, because a lot of unis are going through reviewing those processes at the moment. And I think it's been really good to have that space to engage with other education officers. Within the Russell Group Student Union space, we focused a lot on ethical assurance and divestment, because particularly within the research space, a lot of Russell Group universities are in similar standings with struggling to divest from all of those companies that have ties with arms and defense. So it's been really good to interact with other officers so far to see what progress they've made and what progress we've made, and sharing best practices with them. And because I have those connections, I feel that I would be able to continue doing that into next year as well.
How will you seek to improve transportation options for students, especially those living off campus?
So I think the number one thing we need to do is ensure that bus services are efficient and work properly for students. Even this year, and I know it's been an issue year on year, where students have said that the bus doesn't show up, the bus skips my stop because it's too full. So I think we need to get in. Well, I know that communications have begun with Stagecoach, but we need to continue those conversations and ensure that they do listen to us, and ensure that they are providing services that are sufficient and satisfactory for students, as well as working with National Express to ensure that students from Coventry as well as Leamington are having sufficient bus services. I know that they're currently going through a review of bus services within the West Midlands to look at franchising them to make a cheaper option. And that is something I would definitely support and look at supporting regionally as well with NUS.
You've stated that one of your main priorities are sustainability.
Yep.
How would you aim to achieve sustainability goals on campus?
So I think firstly that involves a lot of work with the university, some of which has begun. So we've recently seen the university's net zero report, and I think we need to continue collaboration with the sustainability team at the university to ensure that the university are on target to meet their goals and are doing as much as reasonably possible to meet their sustainability goals for 2030.
As you mentioned earlier, you've had experience working with sort of moving towards demilitarization this year. Would you consider working on projects such as the ethical assurance framework that this year's SUFTOs have focused on? Would you sort of continue with that work?
Yes, absolutely. So I know that began last year, and it's something that I've seen go through various university committees. And me and I have pushed heavily through for the ethical assurance framework, ensuring that the university will stay true to their word on what they've said they will do in terms of divesting from companies directly involved with arms. However, I think there is definitely scope for that to go further, and the university should absolutely look into divesting from companies that are indirectly involved with defense as well.
As you're planning to become the president of the Students' Union, you're a leading representative for all students to the vice chancellor, and we were meaning to ask, how is the relationship between students and the university, the Students' Union and the university should look like?
That's a really good question. So I think that from the Students' Union, we should be collaborating with the university, because there are many goals that we actually share, and there may be differences in the minor details of those goals and how to get to them. But I think ensuring that the Students' Union has a good relationship with the university allows us to achieve so much more than if we are opposed with each other. And I think it's something that's definitely possible and something that we've been working towards improving.
Are there any other sort of means by which you continue to support the SU in driving to increase the sort of universities and SU specifically's general transparency?
So I think from the student union side, in terms of transparency, we need to ensure that outcomes of ASVs, whether they go through, whether they were unable to happen, all those outcomes should be clearly communicated to students, and firstly, especially to the motion proposers. And that would lead to a better understanding from the student body as to what we can and can't do from the SU side. I think from the university side, again, increased collaboration with them will allow us to convince them the importance of sharing their outcomes with students as well. So I think while we have more control from the SU side here, it's definitely possible to get the university to follow suit, as it were. If we increase our transparency with students, they will follow suit as well.
Okay, thank you. This was the last question of the interview. Thank you so much for having us, for giving us your time. This is Amro and Almo signing off, and yeah.
Thanks. This is Muneeba, candidate for president of the SU.